What about the defense sector here?
Hmm.
You're looking at I mean, things are heating up all over the world. Doesn't seem to be getting much attention, but the
Yeah.
U.S. Aerospace and Defense ETF is paying attention here. Just
Yeah.
hovering, consolidating near its all-time highs. Talk about that and some of the ETFs that are related to it.
Yeah, when I get a lot of questions, what sectors do you like? What party do you think is gonna, help the most? And there are two I like regardless of outcome in this election, and that is the defense sector, the ITA, which is knocking on that door. And then what I do when I look at these sectors, I look under the hood, and yes, Boeing is in there, and Boeing has held it back, just like CrowdStrike has held back the hack and the cyber ETFs. But when you look under the hood, you look at Northrop Grumman, you look at General Dynamics, um, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, these stocks are best in class and they're making new highs and there's strength there. And then here's one. Look at GE. GE is one of the biggest players in that space. It's been
Yeah.
consolidating now for the better part of 5 months. A hell of a run. Talk about splitting up companies and being the
Very true.
beneficiary of a split. GE had done nothing. It was dead money for years. I may even throw
Yeah.
decades out there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the sum of the parts was greater than the whole. And when people talk about Alphabet, I think we have a story lining up there too. But GE is leadership there, and it's knocking on the door. So I think you got to watch this sector closely and watch the individual stocks within it. It's, as you mentioned, a lot of geopolitical concerns, a lot of bad things happening in the world, unfortunately. But this is a sector that does well. I think both candidates are going to have to and continue to spend on defense. So you look at ITA and then you look at cybersecurity. We know how important that is. And CrowdStrike, CrowdStrike had their, I don't know if I want to go as far as their Bud Light moment, but it's going to take them a little while to come back from this. I don't think you want to jump into it, but what people are doing is they're reassessing. All right, is CrowdStrike the partner I want to be in? There are other great names within the cyberspace that have been doing well. You look at Fortinet, FTNT, you look at
Mhm.
Checkpoint, and then now you look at Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto is a great example. If you back out the chart on that one, you see some serious gaps. And when they miss or when they guide, it gets punished. But long term, the overall trend is there. The strength is there. So CrowdStrike will probably come back one of these days, but it's not going to happen overnight. If you want to buy it, put it away and not look at it every day, then you should be fine. But I think the safest way to play cyber is using the ETFs. It's not as exciting as owning an individual stock. But if you look at Hack, on the verge of a major breakout. It may have just done so. So risk reward setups are there for traders. I had this difficult job of coming from a person that traded as a day trader, professional day trader on the floor for 28 years, now into this analyst role, talking to clients who are a little more long-term based. So I try to balance it. I know your audience wants great ideas and you give them to them every day. So I'm trying to thread that needle when I talk to you, looking, all right, long-term risk reward, good setups near term. And, I think that Hack, look at that little rounded bottom and cup and handle, possible breakout. The stocks within the ETF are great. If you can pick the right ones, then you're going to do better than the overall ETF. But if you pick something like a Cloudflare that had a rough quarter last quarter, consolidating could go on a nice run. You missed a little bit. If you had CrowdStrike, you got hurt. But if you had the basket, you
Yeah.
avoided the downdraft that you saw in some of the individual names that didn't, help the overall ETF. But individually, they got clobbered. So I think from a safety point of view, you go with the ETF, and to some people, that's a cop out. I want one name. I want it now. And then I mentioned this one on Bloomberg yesterday, and even the host goes, Cisco? Look at Cisco for me. You want to look at a nothing chart, go back 20 years on this thing. It's
Oh
done
yeah.
nothing. I don't
Yep.
know if this is the make or the break, but on a short-term basis, it broke an intermediate downtrend. The story with Splunk, I think, is starting to finally be digested. That was a big merger when they
It
acquired
was.
Splunk, which is in the cybersecurity space. It finalized that deal at the end of March. So we're about 6 months in. I think they're starting to reap the benefits of that. We had a nice gap, nice breakout. I believe we're above the 200-day moving average, just memory. I can't see it on our chart in front of us. But
No, I don't have that.
the risk reward setup there, intermediate term, we got another 10 to 15%. Okay, long term, my God, it's got a lot of wood to chop, but the direction is there. Like talking about this is like talking about AT&T and Verizon and stocks
Yep.
that just no one knows. But it is still in the Dow. I don't know how, but it's still in the Dow. Don't get me started on Intel being in the Dow. But Cisco to me looks like something's changed, and when something's changed, you know what? I like the risk reward setup there, and I'll take a flyer on it. Yes, I've owned it in the past. I owned that stock for a decade. It did nothing for me.
Yep.
But
Mhm.
now I think, yeah, I think that it's interesting and it's worth taking a flyer. But it's not going to give you an Nvidia day or an Nvidia return. So if you like boring, I give you Cisco.